So I want to talk about karma. And Kryon has told us that karma is a little different to what you may have heard, because before listening to Kryon, I always heard, oh, karma's going to get that person, they're going to get their karma. And so karma was always told as the law of causality. But the way that Kryon describes it is that it's a old energy mechanism to drive you to do certain things. It's a push-pull energy on your Akash. So this is what creates generations of firemen, generations of policemen, because they come in and they're karmically predisposed to do a certain thing. And for those on the bus that came here, Lee gave a story of what he was predisposed to do based on a past life. For those on the way back who didn't hear that story, Lee's going to share it with you. And this is exactly the energy that I'm talking about. You have in your Akash energy, unfinished business to make you do things. And the reason I'm saying that is because most of us here have dropped our karma. And this is the family we have found. Because I have a feeling most of who drop their karma, they almost feel alienated from their biological family. And so if that is you, I want to say that you have family. This is we create a new karmic family group. And Kryon says this is who you then become attracted to and who you start family relationships. And as I was going back through some of the channels from Kryon, in 2010, Kryon talked about how some of you have had really difficult biological families that haven't necessarily supported your journey in this discovery. Now, there are some few light workers who have had very supportive families on this journey. But the promise is this, that now that you've dropped your karma, when you come back in your next life, you carry all of that energetic accomplishment with you. There is that promise that you will come into that family, that you do not have to go through any of this hard learning stuff that you've experienced in this life. Does that make sense to everyone? And that is, we're seeing that now as well because we're in a new energy. And what does that mean? Well, it means we've passed the 2012 marker. There's a new energy on the planet that supports even more this evolution of our consciousness. And so this is really a time of congratulations that you are here with your spiritual family. You've dropped that karma and you are here. We're from all nations from around the planet. And we're sitting here, and it gives me chills thinking, when groups would come here with the ancient Navajo and the ancestors, they're all one tribe. And that's who we are today. We are one tribe, and we have just realized it. And slowly, our brothers and sisters in humanity are also going to realize there is no separation. We are oneness. And that's always been the messages of the ancestors. It's not just oneness with each other, it's oneness with the earth and oneness with the rest of ourselves that stayed on the other side of the veil, which we get reunited with and we come back again. It's just a beautiful cycle of returning again and again and again. So that's my brief message that I wanted to share with you about karma. And now we're going to have a meditation from Ilan and then hear what Kryon has to say in this beautiful heart that surrounds him.
Yeah, so let's get ourselves centered in any way you feel appropriate for you in this moment. Everyone can hear me well? Yes. Take a few deep, nourishing breaths. Gently, if you feel like, you may close your eyes. You may slow down your breathing. You may consciously connect with your breathing as the conscious breath connects with the consciousness of Gaia, as the conscious breath connects with your heart in a higher conscious way. Take it slowly. Let us create a very sacred moment for ourselves here. Every moment in life is truly sacred, but this one is with intention, with a group of old souls that in some way came with a purpose on this journey. And we are feeling that within us, through us, with the land, with the ancestors, with the keepers of the land, and with the beings that follow with us wherever we go. Just a moment ago, we all experienced Antelope Canyon. It truly is a bridge. It is as a portal. As a bridge between worlds. As you walk through it, you could feel in your body and in your multidimensionality, in your DNA, you could feel that there is something there that's beyond the physicality. Some, like other places on the earth, there's some places that are really, really unique. And we may not have the words to explain them, but we feel them. And where we feel them is through our hearts and through our connection with our breath and through our human multidimensionality and beyond. And maybe for some of you, you had even some visions or images or experiences that you may not be able to give a name, but you know they are real. And they are very personal to each of you. And sometimes sharing them may not feel something you want to do because it's a personal message just for you. And that is all right. It is truly personal message just for you at this time. And from here on you can carry it with you. Take another deep breath. And as we have done before, we honor the land. We honor the ancestors, the keepers, the indigenous, and everyone who came before us and that will come after us. And in sacredness of spirit, God and creative source, in the compassionate heart and love, where there is no time, we are all connected. We truly are all one when we embrace in the heart. Take another deep breath. And while Kryon is about to give his third message on his journey, let us feel the connection even stronger, opening our hearts as far as we can, and as deep and as beautiful as we can have it.
Greetings, dear ones. I'm Cryon of Magnetic Service. There are always layers of listenership, of awareness on all of these messages. And the first layer is those who sit in front of me. And quite often the messages are targeted to them. This is the third message in the series of what has been called the Monument Valley Tour of 2019. I say that because those listening might not always get the time reference, or the place reference, or the sequence reference. The last channel we gave was personal. And it was given mostly to honor the indigenous. And so as we sit here, even before we tell the listenership where we are, these are sacred lands. The ones who lived here had the ancestors who they draw upon for wisdom of life. And we recognize them yet again. And we ask permission of those ancestors for this message. A message that's not necessarily about the land this time, but a message of love and compassion, and one that I've given before in many ways. And so yet again, I work my way to that message through that which we've experienced yet today. This group sits here in the sun in a cool day, in a hill that overlooks the majesty of the land. And in this, they have just come from that which is one of the most photographed wonders of the natural world, Antelope Valley. And now they overlook that which is Lake Powell. Beautiful, still, the colors are rich around them, and they all shout that nature is beautiful. And there's much to learn from it. Dear ones listening past this group, if you saw photographs of Antelope Valley, you'd know, oh yes, that's where they are. For the photographs are worldwide. It's a canyon that changes dramatically with the seasons, with the position of the sun, and is never the same. It is perhaps one of the most beautiful places to the eye that you can imagine. And as I've said, one of the most photographed. It is open 365 days of the year, and multiple hundreds of tourists pour through there. Did you ever wonder what the indigenous felt when they discovered it? Did you ever put yourself in that place? What would it have been like for those who were just discovering this land and the beauty of it and the particulars of it? And they discovered that. Would they be impressed? Well, you'd have to put yourself in their place, dear ones. Number one, did it help them hunt? No. Did it help them fish? No. Was it something that would help them with the resources of the land? No. And so it did not become a place that was energetic for them as much as the ley lines of survival, of the stars that would help them to know what was going to happen, or what season was coming, or what the insects would do, or where the animals would go. Indeed, they saw the beauty. But it was over time, dear ones, and different cultures that would discover it and say, this is beautiful. So the point is this, that culturally, depending upon who you are, the time frame, and what you're looking for, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Today you saw beauty. And that's going to lead me to the next thing. Outside of this place, I'm going to get esoteric. What is beauty to God? Many of you put your hands on the walls of the canyon, and inside you felt the energy. What were you really feeling there? If it was not all that important to the indigenous, what is it you were feeling? And I'm going to tell you, it's the thousands and thousands of those from all over the earth that went through there and gasped at the beauty. It was the honoring of nature and the canyons over the last 100 years. That's the crystalline grid. It remembers the honoring, and it imbues that into the granite and the sandstone. And so when you put your hands on the walls, you feel all of those who have come before. And you feel the beauty and the honoring of nature back. Because as you honor nature, as you sing to it, it eventually will sing back to you. How does God see beauty? Well, let's start here. I'm going to give a demarcation. One is this side of the veil, and the other is the other side of the veil. This side of the veil will be humanity in general. The other side of the veil is that realm where the Creator is, where the angelic beings are, where multidimensional energies come from. The veil has been described so many ways by so many historians that were spiritual. A veil is that which you cannot really see past because it's hidden from you. And there are those who had said that veil is set and never moves. That veil on the other side is where God lives, if you want to use that terminology, which is incorrect. This side of the veil, the three-dimensional or four-dimensional side, is where you live, which is not correct either. But that is the model. The part that you don't understand is the veil is variable. And I'm going to tell you yet again, before I even continue the channel of beauty and love and compassion, that one of the things that I want humans to understand and know is that that veil, which so many have said is absolutely set, there's God and then there's you, and there's the veil between. What if I told you that the veil varies depending upon the consciousness and the awareness of humanity? The more consciousness develops into oneness and understanding, as war goes away from this planet, and it will, as more are tuned in to the oneness, no matter what their spiritual belief, it happens everywhere. There is a softening that goes on. Every single time a planet goes into what I will call an advanced graduation status, that is to say that a consciousness starts to raise and raise through generation and generation, the veil between you and that angelic realm starts to lift. And you see clearer through it because of the evolution. And dear ones, if you haven't noticed, this is not necessarily a group veil that I talk about. How about you? When you started to awaken to the potential that there was a larger truth, when you started to awaken to perhaps a potential of oneness, an awareness that all humans had the right to worship, and you could love them all no matter what. Because in basic terms, they all want the same thing. They all have families. They all have to survive. They all love, and they all have compassion at different levels. And an advanced awareness or an advanced human consciousness is going to awaken to those things. That there is a oneness with all other humans, no matter what their culture is. Let me ask, did the veil start to lift for you? And the answer is yes. Because suddenly it was all right to be more aware of things that were outside of the reality of what most people would believe. And I'm not talking about strange things or occurrences or visions. I'm talking about the feeling that you were in touch with something higher than you were before. And I mean in touch. I mean on a daily basis, you were able to get help and feel the love from the other side of the veil. Dear ones, 80 or more % of this planet believes in the afterlife, believes in the Creator, believes in one God. And so you're all set up to understand that there's a separation between you and that which is more spiritual on the other side of the veil. So humanity in general is aware of that. But the ones that I speak to right now, so many of you who have had that experience, a lifting of the veil for you. So it's individual as well as humankind potential. What I've told you for 30 years is that the potential for human evolvement is here. What I've told you for 30 years, its relationship to the magnetic grid of the earth has been established with consciousness, and that is why the magnetics of the planet even moved in the 90s, to allow this higher consciousness with free will to show itself. All of these times I've told you the track is established with free will for humanity to start growing up, to leave the barbarians that you were behind, to have the absence of war eventually, and it's coming. And every time we say that, there are those naysayers who say it cannot happen because it never did. There are those who would say, well, it's a nice idea, Cryon, but of course it's ridiculous. Because if you look back on humanity, it never occurred. And that war is something we will always have. In fact, there are those who say you're overdue for the next one. And so that makes this message something that is controversial. But not near as controversial as what I'm about to tell you. What I have said for so many years now, for decades, that gets me in trouble with almost everyone. And I'll tell you, how does God see beauty? Do you believe in angels and esoteric spiritual guides? Flat out, that question to almost every human being, and they will say, at some level, yes. Because almost every spiritual system on the planet features those attributes. Angels, guides, helpers. In almost every spiritual system, there'll be hierarchies of those very things. And they'll give them names, and there'll be helpers in certain areas for health and safety, for weather. It is common to then get help from the other side of the veil through these ideas. Are these ideas accurate? Yes. Yes, they are. Because God, whatever that term means to you, the creator of all things, that which is inside you, has an entourage. And if you've identified it as angelic, that's the human feeling. That's as good as you can get. But remember this. Human beings can only project what they know from themselves. So the consciousness of humans then often is placed upon that which you don't understand. So the angelic realm often becomes simply humans that are different. An angel, for instance, is a multi-dimensional, beautiful helper, if you want to say, that is part of the realm of God. Multi-dimensional, beautiful. And yet for you to understand it, you have to put skin and wings on it and give it a name. You have linearized something that is multidimensional so that you can conceive of it. So you can already see that there is an issue with how you see things. And there's no judgment. It is as best as you can do. This is changing. For suddenly humanity is discovering in its science what a multidimensional thing is, where physics doesn't work the same, where time is adjusted. And that's the science. So if you apply that to the spiritual realm beyond the veil, you can see perhaps you're missing a great deal. And you are. What is beauty to God? Well, you'd have to then transfer that to ask, what are the attributes of the angelic realm and all of the helpers? What do you expect from them? And I'll tell you, they see the beauty on the planet. And you might say, well, have they been to Antelope Valley? And the answer is, they've been everywhere. But that's not what they see as beautiful. Like the indigenous didn't really see the Antelope Valley as something spectacularly beautiful because it didn't apply to the things that they needed, their survival, and the things that they thought had energy that were important. The valley did not give them a different opinion of the cosmos or the four directions of the compass. It didn't fit into the ceremonies. It didn't change what they did. How does God see beauty? You might already know. Every single human being on the planet, unique, like no other animal, like no other nature, put here as God's creation, is the most beautiful thing to the other side of the veil. Did you know that? Angels, always seen as beautiful, helper, miracles, all of the guides, they guide you to the good places, not the bad places. That ought to tell you a lot about what might be there on the other side of the veil. Beauty to God is you. And that's not what necessarily is taught on this planet universally, but someday it will be. Someday, I tell you this, in many generations from now, that will be common sense. That you are a part of the creation of the Creator. And there's not that much that separates you from the angels, except your consciousness and how far it will take you. If I told you that embedded in your DNA was angelic energy, I would get in trouble yet again. Because there are those who say, no, embedded in your DNA is horrible things. Things that you're going to be punished for. And this is where I want to tell you something, and I'll say it yet again. In this odd separation between humanity and that which is angelic, this veil, everything beyond that veil is precious and loving and loves you beyond measure. Compassion, benevolence, any word that you can even conjure up in any language that is good is there. And on this side of the veil is what you have created with free choice as humans. And it's not that. Free choice has created many layers of negative, dark things. And they all belong to human, not to God. And here's where the statement comes that I've heard for so many and for so long. Kryon, excuse me, are you saying that everything beyond the veil is good and everything here is not so good? That's a bit simplistic, don't you think? And here I will give the answer yet again. Listen to the answer. The answer is exactly. And when you get that, you'll be a better, more informed, more aware human being. Everything that is negative here, even the things you attribute to God, belongs to humans. All of it. God does not have the things that you've assigned to God. Judgment, punishment, horror, torture, the afterlife, even of children, going to a place where you burn them alive every day. You think that's God? Millions do. Millions do. Not understanding that on the other side of the veil, that doesn't occur. And the consciousness is not there anymore, and I'll say it again, any more than that's the consciousness you would have for your children. You would not assign that to your children, would you? No matter what they've done. This free choice that you have really means free choice. Free to take this planet anywhere you want to go. You might have noticed that Kryon does not give current advice over things that you do to yourselves. Whether it's all the controversy of the various types of radio frequencies you have in the air, or the chemtrails, or any of the things that may or not be affecting you. I don't talk about it because, dear ones, that's your karma. You do to yourselves what you do to yourselves. Part of the growth of consciousness is, will you clean up your act? Will you stop polluting to the degree will you kill yourselves? All of these things you are working with constantly. That is humans with humans. I am talking about the spiritual aspect of who you are. The things that are changing on the planet, the things that are starting to be revealed. Don't you find it interesting, yet again, that some of the darkest things that you've done to yourselves, or that's in your society, that have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, are just starting to be revealed now? Don't you find that odd? I'll tell you, this is all related to the shift of the magnetic field, to 2012, to an increased consciousness worldwide over dark things, starting slowly to clean things up that used to be uncleanable. And that includes some things that are coming, and you'll see them, and you'll see them. And this, dear ones, is the proof that humanity is starting to accelerate its involvement in general. And I sit in front of a group of people in this beautiful place, and those listening who can just imagine what this place is like, who are starting to see it in their own lives. Exactly. God is good, benevolent. There is much love for you. You are seen in the eyes of all of the entourage on the other side of the veil as magnificent. The soul that is in every single human being is forever and is part of God. That's where the soul came from. That's where it goes back to. And you're here for a little while. This is temporary. All of it. As beautiful as it is, as short as your life is, it's all temporary. Home is where the good stuff is. There'll come a time when the veil will blur. And there'll be the realization that the angelic realm is starting to be available. And then there will be a more firm affirmation that perhaps it's inside. Brian, you speak in riddles. No, I don't. Not really. Any more than the riddles of the indigenous have to be figured out because they work in metaphors. So do I. But you have to examine these things to understand a little more. Death has no sting, dear ones, except to the ones left behind. And I want you to realize that and understand that every single one of you will take a last breath again. And every single one of you will awaken within a short amount of time and hear the music and see that light, and you'll know again, whew, I'm home again. That's a promise. And every single human being has had a near-death experience is changed for the rest of their life. Did you know that this magnetic grid that you have around the earth is part of your consciousness? Were you aware that you need the magnetic grid to live? I'll say it again. If you're going to go into space, scientist, you better take the grid with you. You better assimilate it somehow and take it with you. You ought to study it to make sure you understand what it's doing, or what it's not doing. Because you can only go so long without it before your body starts to deteriorate. I've never mentioned this before, not like this. There are a few men who have gone beyond the grid as astronauts and spent time, and they were changed forever. And some of you can find this in books and interviews where they go out as astronauts or military or scientists and come back as painters and artists and poets. And you might say, well, what has that got to do with anything? I just gave you something to think about regarding the magnetic grid of this earth and reasons for it and how it's tied in to you, to the indigenous, to the land, to the other side of the veil, to the angelic realm, to what's going on in the shift right now. You are the Antelope Canyon to the angelic realm. They line up to see if you're listening. Some of you are, and some of you are not. But it does not detour them at all. These helpers, these angels, are next to you all your life. And with free choice, you may find them. And with free choice, you may ignore them. And there is no judgment. Because again, we'll see you, and the party is real. The party after life is real. The big aha is real. When you awaken and realize you are part of the angelic realm, and all that is here is artificial to some degree, a test to some degree, and temporary until that place where the veil is no more, and you as humans are one with your higher self. I've seen it. It happens in other places of this galaxy. It's even the reason you're here. That may seem a mystery to you for now. I give this message in a place where the ancestors smile. And they say, this is the message we have always given to the indigenous that are here, who know they are part of the 4 compass headings and are part of the stars and the cosmos and of nature, and play their part in a dance with the elements that keeps them surviving for century after century after century without any depletion of nature. Being one with these things is the most wise thing you'll ever learn again. That's it for now. Leave this place knowing you're magnificent. Truly. And so it is.